Hey folks, 24 hours after we released a video about as polarizing as we're capable of releasing, I would like to share the words of the authors of the paper in focus, who have responded to media claims about the work they had published. First, let me mention this is not something that authors of papers usually do, but these folks are the Stephen Hawking level in the climate game. All black hole papers are founded in a few principles, Stephen Hawking's, and the same is true of climate change papers in terms of climate models. These guys invented them, they are the experts, and the other experts on Earth peer-reviewed the paper. Our claim and analysis was that the CO2 effect had been reduced by about 33%, which amounts to a 50% overestimation. They are actually the same thing, which meant that we needed to look for other causes of climate change and that the carbon dioxide portion of future estimations needed to change as well. The seriousness of the implications of this paper is the other half of why these authors indeed needed to respond, especially because, as I said last night, many headlines have sensationalized the story. They uncategorically deny the widespread claims that the planet is not undergoing climate change and the notion that pollution is okay. Those are the way too far headlines, and they are indeed false. It is wrong to interpret the paper to say that they admitted warming isn't real. They simply say we can't blame CO2 as much as we thought. It is certainly wrong to use this release as excuse to deregulate pollution. And I might add that only a small number of those wanting a change in climate discourse are in favor of deregulation. The paper is saying we have to look elsewhere. I didn't include the sun and volcanoes on the bottom part of this slide, although the authors directly reference them as major players, implying that perhaps more of the warming falls on them. So according to the best authors on the topic, peer-reviewed by the other best authors on the topic, what they actually did was revise the estimate for the amount of CO2 we can emit and still be under that 1.5 degree mark. In doing so, they had to cut back the CO2 effect, and that's based on their new observational data, to where now we look back at what was a 50% overestimation of carbon dioxide. Hopefully you can understand what I meant about Stephen Hawking being able to overthrow an entire field of science, because while the 97% indeed includes thousands of scientists, it does not include thousands of models. Humans are an input to the Earth system. Of course we have some effect on the climate, and if you take that something rooted in truth and you let it cheat by 50%, there is no chance of anything other than a landslide sweep to one side of academic conclusions. Now the thousands of 97%ers did not know that they were doing it. They were simply using the models that their Stephen Hawking's gave them. All of them did the exact same thing. It is important to note that whether the study is done on plants or plankton, they do what all life does when more food is around. They eat, and they thrive. Every indication is that the more CO2 we pump out, the better the plants do, and the more carbon they will eat. May I personally add that I do believe we should indeed focus less on CO2 and more on the more toxic pollutants in the world. I'm no fan of pharmaceuticals somehow making their way into the water supply, or Monsanto's glyphosate, for example. And most importantly,